What's up YouTube, Ramses here with a little bit of a rant. Hope you guys enjoy it. I'm just going to be playing some unrelated footage in the background while you listen to my voice talking about the subject of results versus skill. I see a lot of people interpret results as equal to skill, and I have a lot to say about the topic. I don't really have a really structured way to go about it, so I figured I'm just going to start talking and see where it takes me. I hope you guys enjoy today's video. So why do I want to talk about results versus skill? Well, I think something that I see in a lot of my students and a lot of people that come to me for help is that they don't really understand that skill is not equal to results. And this is something that is a personal pet peeve of mine, where, for example, someone's like, well, he's good because he's on the PGR. And while yes, results are a byproduct of skill, so if you are ranked on the PGR, you're probably skilled, it's not the same. So again, not trying to take away from any accomplishments. If you get ranked, awesome. I 100% support it. However, it's more the way that these arguments are presented. So why do results not equal skill? Well, that's because results are super circumstantial, right? So say that I play a character that has a lot of good matchups and a lot of bad matchups. Something like Zelda, right? Zelda is extremely good against like heavy, slower characters, loses very hard against more rushdown oriented characters. I could get 7th at a tournament because I face a rushdown player early on, and then in losers, in that final match I play another rushdown player. I can also get 1st because the rushdown players eliminate each other or lose before they get to me. And in that sense, the outcome, in other words the result, is very much dependent on factors outside of the Zelda player's control, in this case the bracket, and that leads to luck. This ties into like the most common factor that decouples results from skill, and that is matchups. So, like I'm a Shulk player, I would say I'm pretty decent, but I'm not at like the top level, right? So if I were to play the best Young Link in Europe, Super Semi, I would say he's better than me. I would say he's more skilled than me. However, there's a good chance that I will still win result-wise. And now that's not a matter of skill, that's a matter of the matchup, right? So, again, the result is decoupled from the skill. Of course, the skill is going to give him a better chance to win, and because I'm skilled enough, I even have a chance to win. But at the end of the day, they're not directly equal. Now, the reason why a lot of people talk about results as a crutch is because it's very tangible, and I think that is why I really don't enjoy arguing with people who go to results as a way to measure skill, because it shows that they don't understand how to measure skill, because they think results are equal to skill. So how do you measure skill? Well, skill can be measured through a very personal lens. And I think that is the best way to go about it, because there's a lot of ways that you can try to like objectively measure skill. Like, for example, how good someone is at neutral, you can define through how often they win the neutral versus how often they lose the neutral, as well as how badly they lose the neutral, right? So losing neutral to a huge combo starter versus losing neutral to a kind of like hit and run Greninja Shuriken, something like that. There's a huge difference there too. And then there's more and more factors. So it's very hard, because there's so many factors, to objectively measure how good someone is in a skill. And it's not just like risk reward. That's just one example, right? But there can also be like matchup factors at play. It can also be a matter of how often you play someone, right? So even though usually Sheik kind of destroys Shulk in neutral, because I play with Mr. R a lot, I can get more reads on him, which means he has to be more wary, which is in turn gonna make his neutral less strong. So in a way, like even how well you know a player can change these factors immensely. So there really is no objective way to measure skill. So what I think is best is to get like a subjective way to measure skill. Why? Because that forces you to think about it, right? Rather than being like, oh, he won, so he must be better. It's more about, okay, I saw him ledge trap, and he dropped a lot of ledge traps that are pretty easy to get. Like, for example, like the shielded ledge flowchart, where you just kind of like shield at the normal get up distance, try to grab a normal get up, beat a get up attack, and if they roll, try to react to that. Like doing something simple like that. If they don't even do that, given that their character doesn't have like a unique ledge trap that's a very strong like snake up smash. If they don't even do that, if they don't even get those ledge traps, are they really skilled at ledge trapping? And those type of questions, they mean that your understanding of someone's skill also kind of scales, which is pretty confusing. It also scales with your understanding of the game, right? And that is something that I think is can be very humbling, right? Because people, when they don't have to think about what they like, how they view the game, it becomes very easy to pass off your opinion as fact, because you know they're PGR, so they're better than a non-PGR player. When you know, like something like the PGR, which is like a result-based ranking, right? It has a lot of context to it, right? So how do you get on the PGR? By beating other people on the PGR, right? So if you're in a region like Europe who doesn't have a lot of PGR members, you're probably not going to get PGR. And we actually saw that as a fact in the Japanese rankings, right? So the Japanese were largely absent from the PGR until a few of them got on the PGR, and then they all started beating each other, and now half of Japan is on the PGR. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying that there's context to results. And so that's like a ranking, the context of a ranking, right? So that's the PGR, but it can also apply to the PR, right? So in the Netherlands, there are players that are not PR'd, like Shuck, who definitely has the skill to be top 10 on the PR, but he's not. So would I say he's less skilled than a top 10 member? No, I don't, because I've seen him play, and based on my understanding of the game and my understanding of his play within the context of my understanding of the game, I think he's a skilled player. And looking at it this way, it's way more productive than just saying, oh, okay, well, ranking or result, so conclusion. And there's so many things that go into results, right? So matchups is something we talked about. Another thing that I've experienced a lot, early, like in Smash 4 especially, I was working 9 to 5, and in the evening I was going to locals, right? So by the time I get to my local, I'm extremely tired from like 8 hours of work. I was a programmer too, so it's pretty like mentally intensive. And I would lose to people that I beat at like bigger tournaments, like full day tournaments, because I just don't have the mental stamina, right? I think a lot of people can relate to that with like school stress, right? So when you're in your exam period, you're probably a little bit less focused on the game because you're focusing on your exams. And then there's the whole rabbit hole of does the better player always win, even in like an even matchup, right? So an even matchup basically says that the chances are 50-50. But if the better player always wins, then even in an even matchup, the better player should win all the time. But that doesn't happen, right? So let me take someone who's... So in Europe, right? Say that I were to play against Mary. So Mary doesn't play anymore, but we've practiced a lot during the lockdown, especially when he was still playing. And we were pretty evenish. I would say he wins a little bit more than me in a matchup that we both consider even. So in a way, I think it's pretty fair to say he's more skilled, but he doesn't win 100% of the time. So that, say he's like, quote-unquote, 5% more skilled than me, that doesn't result in 100% more wins. So in a way, there's also some sort of randomness, and we see this in all sorts of sports, right? So I know like sport leagues that have less games a season have more variety because you have less testing moments. And at the end of the day, a best of 3 or a best of 5 even, it's just a very limited amount of tests, especially in Smash, which has some snowballing mechanics like counterpicking, right? So say that you normally beat someone 60% of the time, so you're the favorite to win going into a set, but then you lose game 1, even in a best of 5, that puts you at a counterpick disadvantage. So there's so many factors that go into like the result of a game, and there's something that Brian F. I don't know if the guys know Brian F. He's a Street Fighter player. He's a very good player. He said on Twitter that he feels like skill is a heat map, and I think that's very correct. And a heat map is basically like a grid with intensity coloring. And it, in a way, sometimes your heat map doesn't match up well to other players' heat maps, right? So say that you're a player who has an amazing neutral, right? So like that aspect of your heat map is very well developed, but you have very little experience versus characters that juggle well. So if you play against someone who's very good at juggling, you might lose even though you win neutral more, even though your heat map might be more developed in general. You can still lose because of how that matches up. So you can overall be a better player. It doesn't mean much. So yeah, I just want everyone who watches and listens to this video to know, please don't take results at face value. Look for the meaning behind results, right? You can lose to someone and still be a more skilled player, but that loss still says a lot, right? So let me actually rephrase that. You can lose to someone. It doesn't mean you're a lesser skilled player. It just means that there are certain skills that you are lacking. And that is what you should be focusing on. So this is like a personal thing, right? A pet peeve of mine. Like a lot of people who I lose to, I still don't think are great players. And people like look at that and they're like, oh, Ramses, you're salty, right? You just lost to them and now you're trying to discredit them. But that's not the case. Like if I wanted to look better in that loss, I would credit them. I would say they're the best player in the world, because then if I lose, like, what does that mean? Like if I lose to MKLeo, what does that mean? That means I'm not #1 in the world. But if I lose to someone who I don't think is good, that's not me being salty. I'm literally discrediting myself, right? But that's because like losing to someone, to me, doesn't mean that they're better than me. And seeing someone lose, to me, doesn't mean that they're worse than the person that they lost to. It just demonstrates weaknesses, and it can also demonstrate a lot of other things, right? So in every game so far, every Smash game I've played so far, Melee, Brawl, Smash 4, Ultimate, I switched characters, and every single time I switch character, I lose to people that I normally don't lose to, and I feel like I could beat them with my more practiced character, but I want to get training in with my new character, right? And in those scenarios, people get like super excited, like, oh, you beat Ramses. And again, they're like, okay, result means skill, right? You're skilled enough to beat Ramses. And again, the reason why this is a pet peeve of mine is because, well, it shows that people don't understand what skill is. So if you want to improve, efficiently, I really urge you to stop equalizing result with skill and to start thinking about how they relate to each other, and to start thinking about wins and losses, not in terms of if that determines if someone is better or worse, but to think about it and to think, okay, what does that mean about the skills of these players? So yeah, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a little bit of a rant, a little bit more freeform than usual, but I think it's a very important topic for mindset purposes. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys for the next video. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.